Happy New Year! It's Sandy Gum from Real Money, Real Talk, and happy to be here. I am the insurance and private equity advisor. Today I want to bring along with my business partner, G910 over here.
Hi everyone, it's my first time here, but like on the scene. But I've been working behind the scenes for a while now, but then we're changing things up. So I'll let Sandy talk about what we're going to be doing for the next year.
Absolutely. She's been working really hard. Most produced videos are actually edited by her. And so, yeah, what we want to do, because it's a new year, we want to change up the structure of the videos. But comment below, like if you like this type of format, or if you like the previous format. We want to be a little bit more conversational and sharing some stories, make it a bit more fun to learn about the journey about money. In general, instead of just having a education, it looks like you're studying some sort of financial books. We don't want that to be. We want to be entertaining as possible while learning about money at the same time. Absolutely. So for today's video, I want to talk about setting your financial goals for this year. January is a perfect time to know where you want to be, where you are right now. So we're gonna get onto it. We're gonna have sharing some 5 different tips how you set up your financial goals. So there are 5 essential tips how you set up the financial goals. The first one is be a bit more specific. Okay, you want to have a better idea what you want to reach. So for example, let's say if you want to save up $5,000 a year, now that will be a specific goal that you want to achieve by end of 2021. So without that specific goal, then it's a little bit hard to grasp where you want to be and where you want to go. And it's always good to like set up like a 3 months, 6 months, and 1 year goal, right? So that you can actually track on where you are at the moment.
Do you think it would be a good idea, let's say for example, using your example, $5,000 a year, should I split that equally among the months, or it's kind of a different situation for everyone because sometimes I have more in the bank, sometimes I have less in the bank, depending on some big purchases, or maybe perhaps like property taxes are coming up, I cannot save as much as that week. So what are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, so my thoughts will be like always having some budget. So like, let's say if you know that your property tax is approximately how much, you always want to set aside in advance. That's not part of quote unquote a saving, right? And now we all know that property tax is going up despite with the COVID craziness right now. But what you can do is, remember, you always need a portion of money that cannot be in any investments, right? You want to set aside for emergency, right? Anything to do with savings for investment, for long-term goal, or small or like short-term, medium goal, those one can be goal for investment. But like emergency funds, or like if you're setting up budgets or certain money for tax, property tax, income tax, then you want to kind of plan ahead of time to put aside in advance, preferably per month. So that's a lot easier way to think about like, oh, I want a bigger chunk of money in advance, right? It's always good like to put like monthly plans. So let's say if your property tax is $3,000, then you probably want to do like $250 per month putting away, right? Give a little bit more buffer as well too, right? Because these type of expense, quote unquote, they're not always fixed, right? So you wanted to have a little bit more buffer to adjust that.
Okay, great tips.
Cool. Now the second advice is you want to make sure that your goal is actually measurable, right? So you want to break down your goal into sort of bite-sized chunks, right? That give yourself like daily, weekly, or monthly steps, right? What does that really mean is like focus on those ones that you can really accomplish, right? So let's say, for example, like saving $5,000 a year might be a little bit harder, and then maybe set the goal a little bit lower, right? Having a little bit of range as well too, and you break down into like daily. So for example, right, monthly putting aside might be hard for some people, right? But it could be also breaking down to weekly, right? Maybe you feel like there's less pressure. So depending also how you get paid as well too, right? Some people are on the payroll every week, or some be on the payroll every other week or every month. So you can always kind of like using that as a measurement, leveraging that as a measurement, that taking all the money put away for saving, according to your payroll schedule.
I just want to, comment a little bit on that. I think not setting any goal is a good goal. Maybe a daily saving, maybe just changing a little bit of habit here or there. Maybe, spending less on coffee per week, or spending less on, things you don't need, right? Just referring to some of our videos that Sunny has created before, right? So did you want to comment on that?
Yeah, I do want to mention that it's never a bad idea that you're buying something, right, to reward yourself. But you do definitely need to watch out how much you spend, right? At the end of the day, it's not how much you make, it's how much you get to keep. That's the key point, right? I've seen lots of my clients, they are in a high six-figure, right? But they spend it all and they're still left with nothing, which means, if something happened to them that they cannot work anymore, then they literally just lose their home, lose their car, and lose everything else. So it is important, like, while you're rewarding yourself a little bit, right? But also at the same time, is be a little bit more cautious what you're spending as well.
Okay.
Cool. All right, so I think the third part tips is like to have the goals with a limit time. So when I kind of go back to my first statements, right? So we are setting goal for 2021 means, by end of 2021, what do you want to achieve, right? You don't want to go like, okay, I want to save 5,000, but when do you want to save 5,000? Maybe in 1 month, in half year, or in 1 year. You want to have a very specific time limit when you want to achieve that, right? If you get delayed, how would you adjust it to make sure you're catching up and go back to the right track? What do you think about that?
Yeah, so I think it brings back to my first question, right? Sometimes, there are unplanned expenses, or sometimes there's big expenses that month, but your strategy of, pre-planning the big items. So, for example, property taxes, that's not part of my savings. That's part of a fund that I know that's going to happen. Then I know that my savings are going to be unaffected. But also, like you mentioned, having an emergency fund set up, for those unexpected emergency outcomes, where I have to spend a big chunk of cash. I would withdraw from the emergency funds instead of, ruining my savings plan. Is that kind of what we're aiming for?
Yeah, so I think the best way is, to be really understanding where your money goes and how you want to put it. Like, how do you divide whether this is going to go for saving as a for like emergency, saving for something that's up, like a big purchase you need to pay for, or as a saving for investment or long term for retirement. I think one suggestion of what I would do is, this is something I do for myself. It's actually, I have multiple accounts with one bank, right? So what you can do is, there's a lot of online bankings out there that you can actually create multiple checking accounts without any fees or any monthly minimum requirement. And then what you can do is actually label them, right? Like, you can have a one account specific for fund stuff, you have a one account specific for investment, you have a one account specific for household expenses, right? That's coming up that going to put away for those ones. You have one that's for like income comes in, where you can divide it by into all these different accounts, right? And you have like one more account maybe for education, for something else, right? Or for like long-term investment, right? So you can actually to structure a way that where you put into different containers. Like back days, we usually teach people like putting the money in the jar, right? Or have like those piggy bank things, containers. Yeah. But now, you're making more digitalized, right? Yeah. So what you can do is having multiple accounts, label them properly, and then just really distribute your payrolls accordingly.
Yeah, and you can also set up automatic distribution, right, in your account. So that way you don't need to take as long time to keep track of all your expenses. It'll be automatically done for you at the beginning of the month, and there's lots of different apps and things you can use to keep track and make yourself more organized. It does take a little bit of time to set up the first time, but it'll save you a lot of time in the long run.
Yeah, absolutely. And if you don't know like what online banking you should use to be able to create multiple checking accounts, I will leave the information in the description below so that you can take a look yourself.
Yeah.
Great. Okay, so the 4 tips to set up your financial goal is, you want to be really crystal clear that the goals that you set up is specific for you, cannot be from someone else, right? Oftentimes, if we have spouse or maybe parents, somebody else telling you that they want to do these type of things, you need to make sure that it's something that you also wanted to for yourself, right? Because if it's not for yourself, it's a little bit hard to stick to the plan, right? But if it's something that you're passionate for, that you want to achieve that kind of goal, that it's actually yours, then it's so much more simpler to be able to reach where you want to be.
Yeah, simply setting a goal is going to help you immensely in the long run, because everyone needs something to aim towards. If you have no goals, then you're aimlessly, trying to do something without, checking things off. You're not, taking the right steps to reach the goal.
Great. Yeah. So my fifth tips for setting up a financial goal is actually put that in writing. Okay, it's very easy to say like, oh, let's say I want to lose 20 pounds, right? I wanted to do that kind of things. Well, I mean, nothing in writing is nothing gonna be achieving, right? So if you want to achieve your financial goal for the 2021, you want to make sure you actually write it down. And what I would recommend is actually really in pen. And then put a little poster where you can always see it all the time, so that you can actually track on it. We know it's in the digital world. Some people will tell me like, oh, I'll just put into Word documents here and there. Really, like, how often do you really see these files, right? So you don't really always get to kind of review it. So the best way is actually to write it down, like physically write it down, and have your little posters, or maybe like a board that you put on, say that, what is the goal that you want to achieve. Maybe have a little bit like a bar, right? So if you achieve the first goal, then you can see like, hey, I've achieved like 10% of this goal that I wanted to set up for this year, right? In that way, you can actually more visualize where you're heading to, where you're currently at, and also at the same time, because you know exactly how much left that you still need to catch up.
So for myself, I'm a little bit more digitalized. The one item that never leaves my hands almost all the time is my cell phone. So my cell phone does a lot of my reminders, right? Like yourself, I'm pretty sure Sandy is always on her cell phone as well. So my wallpaper is a quote. So that quote reminds me what my goal is. Then I can put activities that I want to do to achieve this goal directly into my calendar. So I can set up weekly reminders or daily reminders or bi-weekly reminders, but it would be like activities that I would do to achieve these goals. But without putting this into my calendar as a constant reminder that I have to book this time to do something, I would get carried away by all these other things that I might want to do. But having a set time and set goals will help you achieve your goal. It's about the consistency and consistently working towards achieving your goal by doing checking off all these activities you have planned for yourself.
Oh, totally. I think that's a great tip. Having like a goal, like I put as a background for your phone. Do you always decide that?
Yeah, well, it'd be like I have a quote that will remind me. Does not literally say what my goal is, because some people might look at the cover of your phone,
I was wondering about that too.
But it would be like a quote you pick that will remind you of what your goal is.
Oh, perfect. I see it now. Okay, that makes a lot more sense. All right. So, you know what? Other than the financial goals, I think it's also very important to sort of like set a goals in different areas of your life. And for example, such as your fitness goal, right? Maybe you have a specific fitness goal that you want to achieve. Maybe you want to lose weight. Maybe you want to get more fitted or gain some muscles, right? Writing that down as well too, same as steps, as the financial goal, right? You want to write them down. What is the limit? When you want to achieve it, how much you want to achieve it as well. And also you can set up a spiritual goal as well too, right? Maybe starting a daily journal or plugging into a group at your community that you can connect with other people. Maybe you also have an educational goal, right? I do have friends who told me they really want to finish their master. It's been dragging, right? So I told her like just set up when exactly you want to finish your master, right? So she's been dragging. She's really delayed for the last 6 months or 8 months. I don't know what she has been doing. But like I said, right, once you have writing down a specific goal, then it's a lot much more easier to follow that guidelines and be able to achieve that one, right? So take a look to see what kind of educational goal you want to do. And it doesn't have to be like institutional, right? It can be additional education that you want to do, right? I recently saw a friend who wants to learn how to make cocktails, right? So that's has nothing to do with the degree itself, right? It's just for fun, for hobby, something like, spiritually they like to have that one. And the next one is having a family goal. I don't think that's being often talked about family goal, right? Like, what is a family as a whole? Like, where they want to be, right? It could be related to kids. It could be related to overall, what they want to do, right? It could be also related to career as well, too, right? What is your career goal, right? When do you want to get promoted, right? What kind of jobs that you want to get or eventually get, right? So these are great to kind of set up the goals as well, too. And last but not least is, of course, to having a social goal, right? Social goal, not a lot of people actually make that as well too, right? But during COVID, right, we already have less physical interaction with human beings, right? Even though with social media, it's a lot easier to kind of connect with people, but you're kind of all over the place. I feel.
Yeah,
do you agree?
it's not like a physical connection. Text is one thing, but a phone call or kind of a video call does feel different to me. Don't you think so?
I think
you feel
so.
closer when you video call somebody and you hear their actual voice and then you see their emotions. It makes you connect much better.
Yeah, I like a bit more of a phone call. I think all the time when I text you or I message you, I need to call you instead. Yeah, too much back and forth text. Yeah. So having a social goal for sure, right? When was the last time you got a hold of your old friends, right? Maybe it's a good time to kind of get a hold of them to see where they're at. Kind of chit chat together. So I think these will be really good goals that you can set up for 2021. Well, you leave me in the comments below what you think about 2021. I hope it's another great year. I know 2020 was a disaster because of COVID, but it's always moving towards having more positive to look into the future. And so you let me know. I would like to know your feedback.
Okay, so before we wrap up, I would like to tell you guys about our 2021 YouTube goals. So we're aiming to have one video per week, and let us know if you like the new format again. And we'll continue to, hear back and get feedback from our supporters, and we can continue to improve.
Sounds good. All right. I'll see you next week.